So by now, you all are discovering that you have like a Buddha nature, and you have your whatever your name is, nature, and they are different. One is genuine, and one is counterfeit. It's false, due to false appearances. And in the beginning, this just seems like something that we think about, intellectually. It doesn't really like land in its true form. It takes time to begin to realize it and to connect more and more with that Dharmakaya nature as opposed to our ordinary human nature. But you see it seeping in and starting to overtake in a very gradual way, so that when the realization is there, it's like how could I have thought any other way? So if something happens to me and it brings about suffering, I know that that's my ordinary mind, that has supremacy in that moment. But I know also that I have a Dharmakaya mind, and I could just easily look through that lens and be in the mind space of that Dharmakaya body, as well as this human body that's comprised of the four great elements. And just that quick, we can change our state. And then there'll not be anything for us in this world. What I mean by not be anything, it means that no matter what happens in this world, that we can surmount it. And more than just survive. We can surmount by fixing something that's broken, by changing something, by letting something go. There's many different ways, and we'll know the right way to handle each thing that comes up in our life simply by relying upon the anchor. I take refuge in the Dharma. So I wanted to read a little bit from one of Buddha Master's talks. And this is a talk on the various aspects of the Buddha Dharma. And the reason that I want to talk about it is because, that could have been a very devastating experience for me that would color the whole year and a half, right? And the minute she started speaking, right then, I had a choice of which gate I was going to enter. And I could say for that particular occurrence, I entered, is it behind door number 1, door number 2, door number 3? I entered the right door. But it could have just as easily gone south like it did an hour ago, right? When we were in the room doing the serenading and the memories and all of that. And so I was thinking, the memory I want to have right now is when I was the most clear about the Dharma, when I was most in sync with the teachings of the various masters, when I had a moment of realization and insight that completely shifted how things appear to me in this world. That's what I want to have in this moment. That's what I need. That's what's called for in this moment. Which door is that? And knowing the door, will I walk through it? Will I, one of the practices is to accept defeat and give the victory to others. You don't need to do that when you're not in a place where you're being attacked. So we can talk about that till the cows come home, until we're in a space where we are being attacked or misunderstood or whatever. you know. But then can I pull up a Dharma for that? You know? And so we hear a lot of these, but it's not hearing them, it is living in them. Last night I had a dream, and in this dream, well, maybe it wasn't a dream, but I was being taught the Dharma all night, you know, and I went to bed like as soon as I got back from Greensboro. Someone was so kind, and this time she drove me down. And it's a 3-hour drive, and we got to talking, and we were talking on the way home. We went 20 miles outside, out beyond our exit point. We looked up, and we were out beyond uh, beyond Junaluska. And I'm like, wait a minute, we live back that way. No, it was so much. She said, huh? She said, something's not right, Venerable. And I said, what? And she said, look, we look at the signs, we out past Junaluska. So we had to turn around and come all the way back. But we were so engrossed in our conversation and inching traffic, you know. And so yes.
Not just me.
Okay, so I have to. Whenever I ride with Joe, I have to pay attention because say, Joe, take next exit. Okay, he go right by and said, Joe, that exit. He said, oh, well, you should have told me. I said, I just told you, take that exit. But he gets into his stories, and so, so I was really tired, you know. So 7-hour drive, just 15 minutes at the doctor. And I went to bed. So I guess that was around 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 5 o'clock. And so every time I would wake up, like maybe in every hour or every hour and a half or something like that, you know how you wake up, because it's daytime. And I would realize that I just had a Dharma dream, you know, and I don't know what it was, but it's like I'm swimming in a sea of Dharma soup, you know, and then I just close my eyes and go back to sleep, and it would pick up again. And like all of these teachers, like teaching me something. And then I wake up and I have a little bit of remembrance of what it was. I couldn't remember specifically. I just know it was Dharma, and I'm getting full of this Dharma. You know, so I'll go back so I can hear another Dharma teaching and go back. And that went on all night. And then this morning, when I had to get up to come to rehearsal, I was laying there, and you know, if when you've had too much of something, that it's just all it's like discombobulated you. You know, like you had too much of a good thing, and you. That's how I felt. I felt like I was just a mash of molecules, and they were just moving, you know, like it was just this. There was no way to put her back together. I was like, if I tried to get out of bed, I don't know what body there is to get out. You know, I wouldn't know where legs were to swing out of the bed. There was like just not even a blob of molecules. There was just, I don't know what you call it. It was energy that was some kind of life form, but not Pannavati, you know. And I had to lay there until she began to solidify. If you could think of bliss being pleasure, so much pleasure that it caused you to completely annihilate, you saw explode, blow up. That's what it was like this morning. And then I had to just lay there and you know, just kind of looking around to come back into some kind of a form to be equal with other forms. And I was back. So now, first of all, what that tells you is that kind of a bliss was that a full bliss? Was that a full experience of emptiness? No, what was, why? How do I know?
Well, because there was like cessation going on. There was trying to get back to it was like
That's a good guess. Oh, but wrong answer, but good guess. Good guess, wrong answer, but good guess.
If it had been full bliss, you wouldn't have felt all the pieces and like in pieces.
Okay, so I think we're kind of getting close to it. Just the focus is a little bit in the wrong place. That was emptiness of self that was experienced, but not emptiness of phenomena.
you still don't put your hand to the wall.
No.
Not full.
Well, yeah, I think I would say yes. Because I came back and here's this phenomenal world. It's just that I was, I had experienced the emptiness of self, but not all phenomena. And so, but I know that because of the teachings, and so I intellectually know that, but not to its fullness, because when I know it to its fullness, I will experience that. I could at any time go click, and there's the emptiness of phenomena as well as the emptiness of self. And that's why they say that there is no difference. It's this and that. It's neither this nor that. To describe the fact that us and phenomena are all of the same kind. But I think a phenomena is this and me is this. So that's how I knew what I had experienced. When you're having experiences, you need to know what you are experiencing. That's part of it. And this is where our listening and comes in, and where it's useful for us, so that we will understand the experiences that we have, and we can continue to expand in our comprehension of who we are, what the universe is, what our role is in it, and just what this whole thing that we call life is all about. So then I went pulling up Buddha Master's discourses, and I wanted to see something about it. So I'm going to just read a little bit of it today. We now invite the Buddha Master to instruct us in the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha Dharma that I will speak about today is the true Buddha Dharma, which comes from my heart. It's not false Buddha Dharma. I would like to speak to everyone about the Buddha Dharma in a way that is true, it's ordinary, it's colloquial, and so that it will be somewhat easier to assimilate. The Buddha Dharma is an area of study that is broad and it's profound. In the entire Tripitaka, there are sutras, the Vinaya, and the Abhidharma. The Tripitaka consists of a vast number of books, enough to fill a few rooms in a house if they were stacked all together. Hence, it's often difficult for people to learn the Buddha Dharma thoroughly in one lifetime, and even more difficult to understand its actual essence. Now then, what is the Buddha Dharma, and for what is the Buddha Dharma to be used? First, I'd like to clarify one point. When I say the Buddha, I'm referring to Shakyamuni Buddha. After the establishment of his teachings in this earthly world, which is called the Saha realm, it in fact was not a religion. However, so that people could truly understand the truth discovered by Shakyamuni, and for the convenience of having a name, it was called Buddhism. The word Buddhism is only an assumed name. Buddhism. It's not the same as Islam, Protestantism, Catholicism, gospel teachings, or Virgin Mary religion. It is an independent system that has been offered so that people could truly understand the truth that was discovered by Shakyamuni. So the operative thing is understanding what? The truth, and realizing what Shakyamuni Buddha realized. If we forget that, we'll be steeped in Buddhism and we will never gain the wisdom and the understanding that he was pointing us to. What I will speak about is not this feeling of the essence of Buddhism now. I would like to begin speaking about the most fundamental things, such as why we want to learn Buddha Dharma and what the Buddha Dharma is. The first thing I'd like to tell everybody is that a human being, including this human being now that appears before your eyes, is a false appearance, a false body. A human being has no true self. A human being has no true self. Human beings are composed of the 6 great elements of earth, water, fire, air, empty space, and consciousness. The great earth element includes our flesh, bones, hair, and teeth. It includes all of the solid things in our bodies. Tangible things are within the great earth element. The great water element includes blood circulating within our body, bone marrow, perspiration that we exude, fluids. The great water element includes all of those. The great fire element includes the heat within the body. The great wind element includes the air that we breathe in and out. The earth, water, fire, and air elements are called the 4 great elements. The concept of the 4 great elements is often used by ordinary Buddhists. Some of these people say that the 4 great elements are empty and they therefore become monks or nuns. Actually, they do not know what the 4 great elements are. The 4 great elements refer to the principles I just explained to you. Excuse me. Now then, a human being is composed of how many great elements? 6. There are still the great elements of empty space and consciousness. Consciousness is our thought. This life that we now have is called consciousness. That which enables you to hear what I say is called consciousness. In Taoism, this consciousness is called spirit. Buddhism calls it consciousness. Scientists and modern people may call it thought or life. When this consciousness leaves, life as we know it ends. One is then considered a dead person, like those in mortuaries or crematoriums. Thus, people are composed of these 6 great elements. Why is there the great element of empty space? It is because of these 5 great elements exist within the great element of empty space. We know that the abdomen has an abdominal cavity, the mouth has a mouth cavity, and within bodily hairs, there are cavities in each hair cell. There is empty space all over the body. The body is an empty vessel. Hence, there exists a relationship between space and elements. This is what is called the 6 great elements. Now then, do these 6 great elements only refer to human beings? No, the 6 great elements include everything in the entire world. We see things such as houses and cars, roads and trees, mountains, the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars. These are all the great earth elements. We see things such as rivers and oceans, springs, dew, various liquids, including the water and fruits. These are called the great water element. The great wind element includes the wind that blows outside, the wind blown by electrical fans, the wind blown out by this air conditioner, and all invisible power that has the function of moving or propelling The great fire element includes electricity, the heat from an electric stove, the fire in a cooking stove, the fire emitted from matches, the fire emitted from volcanoes, etc. Everything with heat energy on this earth is called the great fire element. The earth, water, fire, and wind elements are called the four great elements. They are also the great elements. There are also the great elements of empty space and consciousness. Everybody knows what is meant by the great element of empty space. The four great elements exist within space. What is the great element of consciousness, though? Please listen carefully, or you will not understand. The great element of consciousness refers to a type of positive, conductive force functioning as a result of the interaction among the other five great elements. It is a type of positive, conductive force functioning as a result of the interaction among the five great elements. This positive conductive force originates from an invisible force. This invisible force is the great consciousness element. I'd like to read it one more time. The great element of consciousness refers to a type of positive conductive force functioning as a result of the interaction among the five great elements. This positive conductive force originates from an invisible force. This invisible force is the great consciousness element. What is this invisible force? For example, sometimes when we are at the beach, there will suddenly be no ocean wind at all. Yet sometimes there will be such a strong ocean wind that people almost lose their footing. The great element of consciousness is directing this. How is the great element of consciousness directing this? This is due to the fluctuations among the other five elements, such as when at a certain place the great fire element is overly strong and suppresses the wind element. Afterwards, the wind element circulates. In this way, the great element of consciousness directs the movement and acts as a pulling force. Take, for example, a volcano erupting or an earthquake. How can these events occur out of nothing? This is also the function of the great fire element. When disastrous floods or deluges suddenly occur, it is said that these are physical, scientific phenomena occurring within space. It should not be said that the force that mixes the elements and that is in control of physical, scientific phenomena is a separate deity. It should not be said that this is a separate deity. This force comes from the scientific relationship between the elements. This is the controlling or directing force that exists. And the reason why I want to say this is because we're doing practices, and I want you to understand what deity practice really is. And it is understanding the qualities and the substance of a particular element that is part of our makeup, or part of everything that exists. So it's not like we make it sort of anthropomorphic, and but these are symbols that represent the great powers of the universe. And when we really come to understand it, we will understand that we are also part of this same kind. While we think of ourselves from an illusory perspective as this is Pannavati and that's a piano, it's not exactly in that way. And as long as I see that as a piano and me as Pannavati, then I'm going to be limited, classified, and contained according to my understanding of who and what I am and who and what that is. And that's the what we call the ordinary consciousness, the ordinary mind state. So the thing that I want you to hold on to, and I'll repeat it a few times as I'm reading, is the great element of consciousness is a type of positive conductive force functioning as a result of the interaction among the other 5 elements. It originates, however, from an invisible force. This invisible force is called the great consciousness element, if we have to use words to describe it. And of course, the word to describe something is going to be less than what it's describing, because that's just the limitation of words. But to get in mind the notion that there is this great consciousness element that is also part of that is one of the elements that come, of which we are comprised. And we all agree about earth, air, fire, and water, right? In space. We all agree about that we're those things. But do we also recognize and consider that we are also a part or a composition of the great consciousness element, which is an invisible positive conducting force. And that's the part that we don't see or know about ourselves. Or because that part of a recognition of awareness of that causes us to only see our limited aspect of being. So we just become a classification of being. So to really, when somebody said that I knew it was only partial because I could still feel the energies, right? But the reason why that answer was not correct, or because I could really perceive something or feel the energies, the reason that answer was not correct is because if there is consciousness, consciousness is the precursor of all of those feelings as well. So that means that consciousness itself has a capacity for feeling. And that's why when you have these experiences, you can still define them. It wasn't like I was in a black hole, I came back. So that's how I know that I went somewhere else, because there was nothing, you will still have experiences. You will still have feelings, but they're not experienced in the ordinary ways that we do as human beings. Sometimes you'll be caught up and lifted up into some kind of liminal space. That you are abiding in a space that's not the normal ground of being that you reside in. But how will you know that? You'll have the feeling of it. You'll have the experience of it. But it's not from the underbelly looking up partially, but there is, so you can't say that there's really like no sensation. It's just not like a ordinary bodily sensation, but there is sensation. So most of the people that we consider so advanced and they've like just dropped off, dulled off into a blank space, like shut down. They're just shut down, as opposed to being all expansive. And that's one way you can tell which direction your experiences are going, and whether your head is manufacturing or creating an experience for you. because you read it should be like this, you know. Next thing you know, you're dropping off into a hole. I was talking to a master one time, and I was so proud of myself because I could sit down and just go like into the deep, just the dark where there's nothing, you know. And he said, yeah, you're just falling into a deep sleep. That's what it. My feelings were so hurt, you know, because I thought I had arrived, you know. And but if you really think about it like this darkness is the opposite of light, you know. So that should have been a clue, but it wasn't, because I read what contemporary teachers expressed as, you know, you're getting someplace when, you know, like everything goes away, the sound goes away, you know, everything, and there's this deep stillness. From our side, it's this deep stillness, but there was a passing through a barrier that is of a positive substance or positive force that engages. So it's being here, going to moving towards the space of, or the reckoning of the Dharmakaya. So you're slowing down from the false appearance, and then you get right here, and then you pass this liminal space on the other side, and now everything becomes bigger, brighter, clearer, vaster, more immediate and imminent. And now that you're getting beyond some words you can express, but there's got to be some sensory apparatus by which you recognize those experiences and have them, right? Yeah. I mean, otherwise, it's just difficult to express what they are, but you still have them. So we talk about ordinary feelings based on limiting views and limited consciousness versus the extraordinary or the true or the real, the reality life, you know, that is based on full knowledge. And so if one finds themselves becoming narrower and narrower and more narrow, then we know that we've got our intellect mixed up with it. You know, and the intellect can't quite sort it out, and it has to make its little cubby holes for everything, you know. But when we find that we're becoming vaster, unlimited, more joyful, and joyful doesn't mean slapstick laughing, but there's a certain, you know, our buzzword for this year is, you know, unimpeded ease. There's a certain kind of ease that goes with walking through the day. In the course of the day, I watched a series called Suits. And, you know, it's high-powered, fast-moving drama about corporate law firm, and, you know, all they do, and they make the big bucks, and they supposedly lived extravagant life, except they leave the law office every night at 10, 11, midnight, you know, and they're back in the office by 6 a.m. They don't get a chance to spend the money, but they make it, and they can look at their bank account and see that it's there and it's growing, you know, and every friendship is tainted by mistrust, you know, by ego and pride, one-upmanship. And I just watched this, and it just keeps growing, and it grows and it grows and it grows. And I was like, who would want that kind of life? You know, I was just looking at the life of that human beings are stuck in, and the end of their life will come before they've really had a chance to even smell the flowers or kiss the rose. It's every day, the days just falling like dominoes. The days are falling like dominoes, and we find something every day to be unhappy about. We find something every day to complain about, even if it happened 20 years ago. We just keep it alive today. We bring it into the now, because now is the only time. And how we waste our life that way. Just waste our life, just bringing, but this kind of, and that is the opposite of the great element of consciousness that has a positive conductive force. So there's no way, I don't care how much Dharma you learn, there's no way that you're going to go forward and penetrate the truth if you're bringing along your bag of negative conductive, forces. It's just going to keep canceling out tomorrow, canceling out the next day. It's canceling it out every day, canceling out. And we'll not make any progress, except we'll know a lot of stuff that we can speak about with our lips out of our head, but not live the experience, the life of marvelous existence. And so I just tell you the truth about this so that you will know what you're doing when you're doing it. And it's up to you to turn. You have to do it. And it takes really understanding life in this day, what it means to squander your life. Doesn't mean that everybody quits their job, gets rid of all their friends, and only have Dharma friends and only do Dharma things. It's that when one recognizes the essence of Dharma in everything, then they can do anything. It should not be said that the force that mixes the elements and that is in control of physical scientific phenomena is a separate deity. This force comes from the scientific relationship between the elements. This is the controlling or directing force that exists. I speak of directing, but in fact, there is no directing. Nobody is directing the elements. However, there is this natural force that exists, which is called the great consciousness element. There is this natural force that exists, which is called the great consciousness elements. Hence, there are the 6 great elements. I will not speak in detail at this time about the origin of these elements. The origin and combination of the 6 great elements are extremely broad and profound subjects. It'll take me 3 days to explain that to you. There is a saying in Buddhism that the 4 great elements are all empty, or that the 6 great elements are all empty. People do not understand what is meant by such sayings. I will now analyze this for everybody. Why are the great elements called empty? Why are they not real? This relates to what I spoke of this morning. The past, the present, and future cannot be held or possessed. Hence, the elements are empty. Is the screen on in the other room? Is that turned on so he can hear the Dharma?
Yeah, you got the remote, yeah.
Oh, he can hear? Okay. Okay. What happened in the past is not real. It has already passed. No matter what it was, it is already past. It is not of the present time and cannot be seen. Thus, it is empty and not real. For example, we can only hear about the things our ancestors did in the past. We did not see such things, therefore things of the past are intrinsically empty. Next is the present. The present is also false. This is because as soon as the present appears, when we are about to take up our pens to transcribe the present scene is already past. Of course, the present of which I speak is that present moment that appears in an instant and then passes extremely quickly, even before our pens have been taken out. That instant has long since passed, even if our pens are already out. Right when we are about to write, not having even written the first word, the present moment has already passed. Therefore, the present is also non-existent. So when we talk about, awareness, awareness of the present moment, and he's saying go a little deeper than that. Because whatever you're describing as the present moment can only be something that has already occurred. The future is empty. Since the future has not even come yet, how could it not be empty? It is intrinsically empty. These are principles of Buddha Dharma. There is the practice of analyzing things to be empty of self or inherent existence. That is, all things are the product of causes and conditions that come together. Everything in the world is produced from the coming together of causes and conditions. No single thing can by itself produce results. Instead, it is only through the coming together of causes and conditions that results are produced. I'll give you an example. Take this pile of food here in front of us. This pile of food was produced through the coming together of causes and conditions. Why do I say it was produced through the coming together of causes and conditions? Take these cherries, these small tomatoes, these mango, this tea. With respect to each one of these foods, there were countless causes and conditions that came together. As for these cherries, in the very beginning, due to certain causes and conditions, a certain person planted seeds in the earth, and after planting them in the earth, they began to grow. They were cultivated, slowly grew large, all the way to the point where they sprouted, blossomed, and grew into fruit. Throughout this process, there were many types of causes and conditions. Finally, the cherries were picked by people and again went through another set of causes and conditions. You don't know how many processes these cherries went through before arriving here, placed before us so that everybody can taste them. Of course, these same principles apply to all other types of fruit as well. Let me just randomly use something else to give you an example. What is this? And he holds up, somebody says a bowl cover. Your answer is wrong. Why is the answer wrong? The correct answer would be to call it porcelain. Bowl cover is a false name. It is in reality a piece of porcelain. Suppose I were to break this bowl cover right now, pick up a small piece and give it to you. Then if I asked you what it was, you would not know. It would be a piece of porcelain, but it would not be a bowl cover. Suppose I gather flower vases, mortars, large bowls, and other things made of the same porcelain material, and together broke them into pieces. If I took out a piece and asked you what it was, you would not be able to identify from which object it came. You might not even be able to identify a piece that was formerly part of the flower vase. You said that this is a tea bowl cover. Instead, it is porcelain. Therefore, a bowl cover is a false name. Now then, how was this bowl cover made? It was produced through the coming together of causes and conditions. Mud, water, and human labor were used. All of these causes and conditions came together in its production. Artisans who made bowls used tools and a furnace and carved designs. In the end, it became this tea bowl cover. Thus, this bowl cover is a false phenomena. It exists temporarily. It is temporarily named as a result of the coming together of certain causes and conditions, but it falsely exists. It does not truly exist. Why is it described as falsely existing and not truly existing? The reason is that it is impermanent rather than permanent. Sentient beings will certainly die. Non-sentient things will surely perish. Whatever has life and feeling must die. This is unavoidable. Non-sentient things must perish. Things without life must perish and break down. With respect to this tea bowl cover, no matter how well you preserve it, even 50,000 years, even if it took 50,000 years, it will decompose. If not preserved well, it will have already been replaced by a new one when I come back to visit again. Even as early as next year, maybe by that time, it will have already perished. There are many reasons why it might perish by that time. Someone might break it or smash it. These things happen. Therefore, what I saw on the road yesterday caused me to sigh. Some furniture was discarded there. There is a case where non-sentient things will perish soon. Non-sentient things will break down. Within 2 or 3 years, you will have replaced the clothes you are wearing, perhaps, including your shoes. They will not exist. They will have perished. You might say that you will not replace them, that you will put them away so that they will last, but they will decay at 400 years. They'll decompose by themselves. They're breaking down each moment. You just can't see with the naked eye that this is happening. You don't realize that it's breaking down because we can not directly see into the nature of this. We only realize this when these individual moments of decomposition accumulate. I'm speaking of non-sentient beings now. Sentient beings, such as ourselves, must die. That which has life comes closer to death every day. This is definite. All of us are sitting here subject to this. This is what is meant by sentient beings must die. It is certainly unavoidable. Therefore, the suffering associated with birth, aging, sickness, and death are all a great burden for ordinary living beings. Once born, you grow old. Day by day, you can see this aging process. We fall sick and then die, and dying is painful. We experience suffering when we are separated from the persons and things we love. No matter who or what you love, no matter how deeply you love the person or thing, the more you love, the more you suffer. This is due to the inevitability of being separated from the object of your love. Bear in mind that you will be separated from whoever or whatever you love. You might say to yourself, I will not love then. But you must also part from that which you do not love. So it doesn't matter whether you love or don't love, you still will experience suffering. Sentient beings must die. Non-sentient beings must perish. There is the Chinese saying, with death comes, each being takes a different path. That is, when the end of your life arrives, you will pass away. This is fixed and indistinguishable. How is it, after all, that we die? Dying in incremental stages is called partial death. There are many other types of dying as well, each of us in the midst of dying in incremental stages. How many partial deaths would you say you're dying right now? You might say none, Master. What you say is not right. We have not died. Partial death means that your cells are continuously dying. Some people say that after cells die, new ones grow through metabolic processes. This is incorrect. When a portion of your cells die, the overall cell count decreases. Cells will only decrease, not increase. Therefore, people can only grow old and cannot grow young. Whenever there are cells growing, increasing, it is an anomaly such as a cancer, and that is still on the side of disease and decrease. Therefore, people only grow old and cannot grow young. If you do not believe what I said, just wait until I give a discourse to you 20 years from now. You will surely all be very old as you sit before me. And at that time, I might ask you, do you remember when I was previously in Taiwan at a certain place giving a discourse to you about partial death and you were so young? Or I will wait 40 years from now and ask you. And look at you. You will not have the same appearance as 40 years before. Day by day, our faces become more wrinkled. Our hair becomes whiter. We slowly weaken. Only after such signs of death accumulate can we discover them. We cannot see them before. Sentient beings must die. This includes all beings with life, not only humans. Every living being is subject to this principle and cannot escape it. Non-sentient beings will perish. There is the suffering of greed, hatred, and ignorance. Greed produces suffering. One is greedy for something, but does not obtain it. Having not obtained it, one suffers. There are many types of greed-based attachments. Some are attached to becoming a high-ranking official. Some are attached to attaining a high position, not realizing one's goal of greatness is suffering. With respect to hatred, when one sees that other persons are doing well or that they are powerful, one becomes dissatisfied. That is what dissatisfaction is. One hates them, one thereby causes one's own vexation and one's own suffering. So when we talk about the three root poisons, greed, hatred, and delusion, somebody says, well, where does jealousy come in? Where does envy come in? It comes in under the category of hate. So when we're doing our practice and we're working on ourselves, sometimes we start with these gross aspects that we can clearly see and clearly recognize and identify. But then we have subtle, there are subtle feelings and thoughts that we can't truly identify, except that the light of prajna shine on them so that we can see them. Otherwise, we'll be over here trying to repair the wall, but but it's over there where the air's coming in. And so it takes a constant refining and ability to go deeper, but you can't get and excavate here until you excavate all that comes on that's on top of that. So there's constantly the cutting away, the looking deeper, and we may feel uncomfortable when we do this, but when we do it, we should be saying, "Glory be," because to have the capacity to see what's deep down there means that you have removed the dirt and the filth of erroneous views to get down to that level. And it may be uncomfortable to see it right there, but one can rejoice knowing that they've gotten down to that level of personal inquiry and deep seeing, because it's the only time that could be extricated from our mind stream. And so I'm undergoing a complete scourging right now, and I understand that that's what has to sustain me, and I need to find the joy in that, because that's not suffering. Actually, that is the release from suffering. The suffering was all of that being there, it's not the excavating of it. But we take the excavating of it, for it's coming to the surface as suffering, but the suffering is already inherent in the seed of the fact that it is there and it exists, whether you know it or not, or whether, it's reared its head in the last 5 years or not, or whatever. And so we almost have things turned around, turned backwards, that when we are growing, we go through these times of seeing ourselves out raw, naked, no euphemisms. And you have to be in a certain place to even be able to call that spade a spade. Until we're ready, we can't even face it. But when, we start getting to the place that we look and see that and not say that is me, we can recognize that as a false appearance that has no part in me. Now, which me does it have no part in? It has no part in the false identification of me as an individual self. So that's what cancels that out. That has no part. That has part in the false narrative of who and what I am. It has no part in the real me, which is the Dharmakaya. And so we're not really trying to realize our Dharmakaya. We have no Dharmakaya. And if we're not clear about that, we will still be grasping for something, trying to attain something, trying to be something, and we'll be just rolling around in a circle. We're not trying to realize this is the words, but get it right. We're not trying to realize the our Dharmakaya, because there's no our. And the more we see that, the more we will diminish, and the more the Dharmakaya itself, will grow and brighten, and this illusory self will not. And when that happens, that's when true bliss starts to arise and emerge, because we lose the heaviness of a sense of self. And whenever a sense of self comes upon or it presses itself for recognition, we can feel it. We can feel it. We can feel when self is grasping. We can feel it when self is reaching for something. We can feel the burden of it. We can feel the weight of it. But there's a carefree aspect that we experience when we're not self-grasping. We call it feeling good. We feel content. We feel happy about ourselves. We feel carefree. We feel expansive. These are words we're making up to try to describe some kind of experience. But on this side, in the experiencing world, the experiencing universe, no, we can rightfully use these words, because this truly is our momentary, and momentary is too long of a time frame. It's our instant, immediate experience. And so gradually our minds, when we hear this over and over, and we think about like, yeah, that makes a little bit of sense, a little bit, but I'm 90% over here in something that's a little bit more pragmatic, and, but 10% of that makes sense. Then later it's like 20% makes sense. After a while, you get to like 50-50, and that's a really good space. At least you can hopscotch, your foot's in and foot's out. But then, you're going to keep going. And now you're tipping the scale and the balance. And that's that movement from being an ordinary human being moving to the realm of universality. And that is an experience that can be known, and that will bring the utmost contentment, the power of what we would call contentment and peace and bliss into our life, no matter what we're going through. Now, I would say that everyone should know his false self. I was like that. I would have said before this talk, everyone should know a self. Know yourself. But I'm going to say, should know your false self, because you know then what you need to uproot. I know, for instance, and this is just me, you check yourself. I know that when I go into a lot of procrastination, that I'm confused. I'm stuck between Pannavati and that which has realized the Dharmakaya, because Pannavati thinks one way, and the Dharmakaya just is a force that just moves, invisible force that moves. And so Pannavati lives in a space of time, Dharmakaya, no time. Pannavati moves in a space of having to make decisions because everything is linear, it's not linear. From a world of things being fixed and solid to things not being fixed and solid. For the world where you can just see through things dimly because the wisdom is not full, to spaces of unlimited knowing, And so for me, it shows up like procrastination. For somebody else, it shows up in some other way. But you should know whichever way it shows, how it shows up for you, and then that's what you have to work on. So I think I will stop here. I'll read. I'll just finish out this section. With respect to hatred, when one sees other persons are doing well or that they are powerful, one becomes dissatisfied. One hates them. One thereby causes one's own vexation and one's own suffering. There is the suffering of greed, hatred, and ignorance. Part of what one loves is suffering. We love our suffering. The 8 types of suffering act upon people. People in this world are beset by the 8 types of suffering. There's no real happiness to speak of. You may say that there's happiness, and some people have high positions, live nicely, have loved ones, but not so. In private, such people engage in constant self-pity and lamentation. There are only a few who are very happy. Those people possess true skills. When they are abiding in a state of meditation, they are truly happy. They're happy, they have supernormal natural powers. They can transform themselves into other shapes and can experience supernatural states. Because of this, our goal in practicing Buddhism is to eliminate the 8 types of suffering and escape from those 2 fetters of reincarnation and impermanence. The 8 types of suffering are praise and blame, loss, gain, pleasure, pain, fame, and shame. So no matter which end of that scale you're on, they all incur their own types of suffering. Our goal is to eliminate those 8, not 4, but the 8 types of suffering. We think eliminating suffering is the blame, loss, pain, and shame. We want to eliminate those. But it's the 8. It's also their opposites, because only then will you be released from all the fetters of the Saha world. And only then will you begin to understand what it is to be empty of self or empty of any inherent existence. So I think I'll stop right there, because then he goes into cultivation of the siddhas. I had planned a little different talk for today until I woke up this morning, but I'll give that to you on Sunday. And actually, it's going to be the story of a monk of the Ramakrishna order, because I think it'll help you to understand a certain Buddhist principle when you hear this story. So remember, this is all about what we directly experience. Okay, it's not about what we hear or study and memorize. Maybe we should just say hearing and hearing and hearing versus studying, because studying, we mix it with our intellect and we come up with conclusions about things that cause us to really miss the essence of it, and then we miss the direct experience. But I want for all of you to know the reality of the Dharma and walking the Dharma life that is rare to find and rare to discover, and how blessed we are to have encountered the master that we did. that creates the possibility for us to enter via the gate of his experience. And so we don't have to learn all of these things. We never learn them in one lifetime. We never learn everything that has been compiled about the Dharma. You know, it's just there are certain things that you need to know. And if you, that's like writing in shorthand or taking the shortcut. And so I'm not trying to learn everything Buddhist, you know, everything in Buddhism. I just want to know that which will take me to the direct mind, and we call it what's the word, changing, thank you, changing lineage from, and we're moving from the lineage of the line of human beings to the line of the awakened ones. No matter what circumstance you encounter, you can overcome it, and no matter what kind of person you meet, you can be a present help in the time of need if they let you. You know, everybody won't let you assist, but you can have the capacities to assist in very, very powerful ways, in your situations with your families, with your loved ones, and by having abandoned the 8 worldly winds, not just the 4, when your help is not accepted, or when you can't restore the harmony, you can allow the chaos and the dissolution, and continue to abide in marvelous existence. Yeah. And then he says also after that, and whenever you need a break, you can just go off and visit some other worlds. Yeah, like I did last night. But you know, these things always seem to come after you've gone through something. It's almost like the tougher circumstance you go through and survive, come out the other end, you're better. So maybe that's something that we can hold on through when we're going through a tough growth period. That, you know, like, it's better when you come out the other end. So he said, little questions, little answers. Big questions, great answers. And it's the same thing about overcoming things in the world. So the greater the challenges, the greater the victory. Would somebody close for us?
By this merit, may we quickly attain enlightenment and take all beings with us.